Hello, this is Kevin with Bangor Inc. And today we're going to be looking at some introduction series on eTakeoff Dimensions. This is the first of a handful of different ones, and this one's just going to be starting off how to get a project started and some of the most common functionalities to creating a new project. So I'm in eTakeoff already. I'm going to go up to File and New. This is where I'm going to pick wherever my folder is as far as where my images are themselves. So a lot of companies have some common folder out there that they store all their image files. And here's a project that we're going to be looking at today. So this project has multiple folders in it. So a lot of people might have one folder with many files. Some people might have one file with many pages. Some people might have them broke off into different folders also, like we see here. Doesn't really matter. When I pick this folder is going to do a couple things for me. One, this is going to be the default name for the project. Two, it's going to look through all the different folders or subfolders for all the different things that it acknowledges is something it thinks it might have image files of some sort. So I'm going to hit OK to get started then. This is where I could change the name if I didn't like the name. I'm going to leave it at this point. I could put it on location and bid date and some other things. I could set a default scale if there's some common scale amongst all these different pages and so forth. And on this, I'm not really going to do too much. I'm going to leave everything pretty much at default, and I'm just going to make sure this box for scan for drawings is on. So that way when I hit OK there, it'll go ahead and say, here's all the different folders that it found images under. So I could go through there if I knew that there were some images I didn't want in here for some reason. I could come in here and turn them off, but in this case, I want to have all the images on, so I'm just going to hit add there. So the first thing most people seem like to do is they like to get themselves a little bit familiarized with the files and so forth, and the images and what pages are relevant and which ones maybe are not, and where's my detail sections and things like that. So as we get started up here, this will actually show me all the different files. So if I had multiple files that made up this project, this top one would where I would see them. Within a file, I could have many different pages. So in this case here, this one here was set up where most of the stuff just has one page associated with it. But this is where if you had one file that had 100 different pages, it would just basically, the file would be up here and the pages would be down here. Down here at the bottom, you still see all the different plans also. So I could basically come in here and look at them this way. So a couple different ways of kind of navigating these pages. It's common that as I'm looking at these different pages, there's a few different things that people like to do. One of them is I might want to rotate them if they were off, going the opposite direction or something like that. So there's some pretty easy ways of doing that just with a little rotate symbol here, whether I want it 90, 180, or 270 out of roundabout and so forth. I can also go up to a drawing, and this is where I can also get into things like drawing properties or go scan for TIFF files and some other things and so forth. But the one thing I do want to talk here a little bit about is it also has something called rename drawing. So my drawing came in pretty decent because whoever built these files and so forth, they basically named the different pages. So that way they've got a little bit of relevancy to them. It's also sometimes common for this just to say page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and something very generic that you don't know, what these details are that you're looking at and so forth. So as you go through here, this is where you can also rename the drawing so I can give it some sort of better description. So if it was something generic like just page 1, I could say wipe out page 1. I want to just call it the site plan or something like that. And basically, as I go through there and rename these, I can also check this box. And what that'll do is it'll change the OK to next. So that way I can go and look at each one. And the nice thing about it is the screen also flips. So as I'm looking at each one, I can kind of make notes of, oh, this is where my wall detail is. This is where my first floor plan is. So I'm kind of doing the nature of maybe looking over the images as I'm giving them a better name or a more meaningful name that when I go back and look at those later, I could find them. So those are the first things that people like to kind of start off with to kind of get familiarized with the images and so forth. As I'm starting to kind of look at things, one of the things that you'll notice is in most systems, when you start to think about doing takeoff, it's common to zoom in on different things. So by the time I start zooming in on different areas, it's very easy to lose your perspective with where you're at on the image. It's interesting watching some of the different products out there and so forth, where some people, they might zoom out and figure out where they're at and zoom in and then start following the line across and so forth, where it's kind of difficult to tell where you're at when you get zoomed in at some of the bigger magnifications and so forth. So one thing I'm going to do here is over here in my control panel, these control panels are basically where you can put in the different functionality that there's all sorts of different measurements and traces and and the bird's eye view and layers and things like that. So there's all sorts of different components where I can kind of organize these the way I want. This one here I've got docked on the left-hand side. So after a while, we'll go back and talk about how to move these panels and things like that. So I can also come up to viewing, and I might say that I want to add another control panel. So I could add a completely different control panel. So you can add multiple control panels. So there's a third one and a fourth one. And as you get these control panels up, you can also move them around. So if you've got multiple monitors, maybe I could drag it to another monitor. So one thing that's kind of handy, I'm going to go ahead and close this up for a moment for the second control panel. And I'm going to say I want the second control panel to be my bird's eye view. So this bird's eye view is something I could have on this screen if I needed to, which in my case, I don't have the multiple screen recording going on. So I'm going to leave this over here at the moment. So this is where I can actually see a bird's eye view of what I'm seeing on the screen right now. So this is very powerful because that way you can tell exactly where you're at on a set of prints. So even if I get down here in the middle and I'm kind of zoomed in much, you can see the box there of where I'm currently at. This is also kind of handy because when you start talking about trying to scroll pages and things of that nature, well, it's faster to grab this box and move it around. So that way I can very easily navigate from one section to another as I'm navigating the page or doing takeoff, things of that nature. So there's some of the most basic things that people do when they get started is familiarizing it, getting the plans kind of named the way they want, probably getting a bird's eye view on so that way as they start zooming in to do some takeoff after a while, they could tell where they're at and be able to see that. That concludes this first session. Thanks for watching, and please make sure to check out the next section where we'll start in on the takeoff.